G'day, this is Ghost Wolf, and I am back in my previous save game one last time to take you a walk around this village that I had started working on. So, the first building here is the chapel. And the chapel is built of granite, jungle wood, and acacia logs. And I think that the grey tone of the acacia logs does complement the jungle wood pretty well, but the entire reason that I built this out of jungle wood is because I wanted to show that you could make a palette based around granite, and that there were colours that would complement it. And that feeds into why this village turned out so poorly, but also why it was such a valuable experience. Because for the village itself, I didn't pick a colour scheme. Each individual building has a palette, but there is no theme in the colours or the building styles. And so what I've got is a pretty ramshackle collection of buildings that don't look like they belong together, but experimentally turned out to be a really valuable experience in letting me play with the different kinds of things that I could do. And I think that that had a really big influence on the project that I'm going to be showing you next week. And so that's why I wanted to take this moment to walk you through this old village. And one of my favourite features of this chapel is this ceiling in here, where I have built some of the arches lower than the actual ceiling itself to give the impression of vaulting. So it looks almost like it has ribs holding up that ceiling. The second building is the Tavern, which is apparently the best meeting place for these villagers. They really crowd in here at night. So we have a lovely little fireplace to keep things warm and cozy. We have plenty of tables and seating. There's a bar for the bartender to serve drinks from. There's a little kitchen here which shows they make beetroot soup, mushroom stew, and even rabbit stew. If we have a look in here, there's meat ready to roast. If we go downstairs, there is a small cellar, so there's racks for wine bottles and these large kegs, or at least they're supposed to be kegs. You get the idea. It's not easy making circles in Minecraft. Upstairs, we have a small common area. And the Tavern's cat. We've got a guest room with just a small bed and a table. A second guest room. And this room is for the tavern owners, so they have some bookshelves to keep records and whatnot, and a painting for decoration. Fountain. And at the back here, I tried to go with a non-traditional footprint. And I probably should have extended the roof all the way out so that the roof was square, even if the footprint wasn't. The third building is the smith, and so we've got a forge with lava in it, which has been decorated with the chiseled stone. Inside we have a workbench and a table, and there's a chest for storage. And there's a window here leading onto the forge which brings warmth in and makes the house very cozy. And upstairs we have a bed and a desk. And a lot of these buildings have these back doors on them as a way to increase the number of valid doors in the village. The next building is the farmer's hut, which is also strangely popular amongst the villagers here. And so we've got a simple living area with a table and a couch. It's a storage chest. And then up the staircase you can see there's a single bed by this window, but also a double bed. So it's probably a family that lives here. And then out the back door is the farm itself. And we have a hoe mounted here on the item frame, so that if any of the farm plots have been trampled, I can just grab that off the wall, till the soil, and put it back. So you'll notice that there is very little space between the buildings, and that was done intentionally. The next building is the butcher's. So in here there's a counter, you can buy the meat, and it shows that you can get rabbit when it's in season. And through here there is a desk for business and paperwork, and here we have some hanging sides of what's probably beef. So that's aging. And there is a block of some kind of meat. A cauldron for washing up. And then out the back we have our field where we keep our animals ready to breed and slaughter. And one of the little features that I quite liked in this one is the drain in the floor. And so upstairs we have some seating and another bed. And you can see that there's a little window that looks out over the roof of the shop part, which has been done with fences for ventilation rather than glass. And back in the fountain we go. And the ceiling over the shop part was too shallow to be useful in terms of living space. So it's actually filled with dirt to prevent any mob spawning if mob spawning was turned on. So here's our next building, which is the bakery, named after FedEx, whose videos have been incredibly useful. And so we have a lovely cake here. And we also sell pumpkin pie and cookies and bread. If we go into the back, there is a kitchen and there's furnaces, even though you don't actually use furnaces to make baked goods. And a pantry with some storage in there. If we head on up, we'll see a living space with a table and chairs. And up again, we have a sort of bedroom. And we have some tulips growing on the windowsill. And at the front of this building, you'll see that the upper stories actually extend out over the lower story, which is something I also borrowed from real medieval style villages, where the upper stories were built larger in order to take advantage of the additional space. And so this little building is probably the worst of the experiments I tried. I was just throwing shit at the wall at this point to see what would stick. Opposite the baker, we have the Tailor Shop, and I am not even sorry for that pun. And there's a little stand here where customers can get up on and have their measurements taken. And there's a sewing machine. That's supposed to be a sewing machine. We've got a workbench in the back with a table. I actually really liked the fence post in the center of that staircase. I thought it worked out really well. We come upstairs, so there's a living space. And up again brings us to a bedroom with a single bed. We have a small garden, and I've just used coarse dirt so that the grass wouldn't grow over the area, and you got a visual distinction between the grass and the garden itself. And you can see that this building also extends into the street over the lower level. So I've tried to use a mix here of different levels with the roofs going in different directions. And I've got these buttons here as decoration. And I've matched the button to the wood type to make it a little more subtle. Here we have something different. I was trying for a log cabin sort of look with stripped oak facing in the same direction. So we've got this pattern on the floor in the stone. And if we come down into the basement, there is another large barrel which is for soaking hides. We can see that there is a leather hide being stretched and some rabbit hides. And this is probably where the butcher gets rabbit meat from. So if we go upstairs, and it was often quite hard fitting staircases into these footprints, but we have Mr. Tanner and Mr. Trapper's beds on either side. And they also have a back door. This is also one of the few instances where I have used trapdoors as shutters for the window. The way that most people use shutters on their windows feels a little unrealistic to me. Usually there's far too many shutters for the size of the windows that a building has. So here we have our school, which there's the teacher's desk at the front, and we've got desks and chairs for the students. and that's connected to the library. And so we have a desk here. Our bookshelves. You can see there's an internal door that also leads into the school. Lots and lots of bookshelves. And the non-fiction section is upstairs. We go on up. Tables for people to use while studying, and there is a lot less non-fiction books. And the two hall type structures that you see here are due to the way I designed the roof, because the school side is a lot shorter than the library side. And so what I've done is made two parallel roofs, and you'll be able to see that better from outside. And there is a pattern on this floor, but the pattern itself has been somewhat lost by having the bookcases on top of it. But we've got these two parallel roofs that meet in the middle where the stairs come up, and that creates the two wings of the upper area. And because this is quite a large building, this building has some additional support in the columns that you see on the outside, both them being stone and them having the wider tops. And down here is where I hide my sheep. I had a massive pasture that I was keeping many sheep in, but wolves kept spawning inside the pasture and killing my sheep, and it was getting very frustrating. But now that the sheep are underground, they're safe. And so this is the last building that I worked on, and it is the barn. So here we have a whole bunch of saddles, and we have these large stalls for the horses. And I'm using these double doors because horses do not fit through a single gap. They don't even fit through a 1.5 gap because I had a fence post on one side and they wouldn't fit through, which is exceedingly annoying. And so now I've got these doors and you can't see the horses properly. And so out the back, because I don't have enough stalls for all of the horses, I was trying to collect all of the different colour and pattern combinations. So we have a nice big pasture out the back here. And that is actually on part of a flower field, which is where all these tulips come from. And I had to do this with the back gate, which was just there to let me get in and out more conveniently. But the almost 2 block wide gap between the fence posts over the gate was wide enough that any of the horses that could jump over a fence, and some of them can, were escaping. And so we have a donkey, and here, because this stall is empty, you can see that I've used hay bales on the floor, which not only looks really good, but is also very fitting for the purpose. And these aren't necessarily... oh, here's a Pona. These aren't necessarily my favourites, but rather the ones that I acquired first. So you see we've got a lot of ventilation here with the fences on top of the walls. And we have the large doors where the crane arm is for lifting large loads up into the top part of the barn for storage. So there's a log in the corner there. And these have fences instead of windows for airflow, and because it's cheaper. And we've got a lovely big storage of hay bales, which is actually, the hay bales you can see are the only hay bales that are there. Everything underneath them is just dirt. But hay bales are a pain to make. And then finally, on the third level, underneath the roof, is the living area, which I hadn't gotten around to furnishing yet. And it has this stone roof because I was trying to recreate the look of an actual barn with the red timber, the whitewashed trim, and the slate tile roof. And all of these horses have been tamed, so they can be ridden with one of the many saddles that you saw inside. And so that's all that I managed to complete, and it does look like a mess. And I did want to show you this. One of my favourite things while I was doing this was coming along the Great Sky Rail and being able to see the spire of the chapel as I approached. And that probably happened way too quickly to see, but there is a cactus here at the end of the minecart rail, and I was in the habit of coming to the end and stopping on that powered rail and leaving the cart where it was. And animals like sheep would come along and they would just blithely bump into the cart and send it off. So I would come back and there would be no cart. And so what happens is that when you hit that cactus, the cart breaks, but because of the slab on top, you get knocked back. And the hopper underneath the rail collects the cart, puts it in the chest, and so I never have to worry about where my rail has gone. So that is it. I've been Ghostwolf. If you would like to support my channel, you can check me out on Patreon. Cheers!